always trust.
Ties between Greece and Israel have strengthened in recent years, despite a long history of supporting the Palestinian cause. A relationship fueled in part by a shared mistrust of another regional power, Turkey. But in light of Israel's war on Gaza, Greece is now forced to play the role of critical friend, while at the same time averting a full-blown confrontation with its old adversary, Ankara. Join me, Niamh Barker, over the next half an hour as Greece's Foreign Minister Giorgos Gerapetritis talks to Al Jazeera. Giorgos Gerapetritis, welcome to Talk to Al Jazeera.
It's a pleasure and honor. Thank you for the invitation, Niamh.
We're staring at the precipice of a potential full-blown Israeli invasion of Rafah in southern Gaza, causing huge concerns about the implications on the humanitarian situation there, the civilian population there, so much so that even the United States, a staunch ally of Israel, has urged Israel to show restraint. As another ally of Israel, what conversations are you having with your Israeli counterpart, specifically about Rafah and the conflict?
When you're an ally, I think you have to be very honest, very open, very frank and sincere. So our main point is that any sort of invasion to Rafah should be avoided and prevented. At the moment, there is a huge accumulation of population in Rafah. It's a very overcrowded region. And any sort of invasion could cause a dramatic humanitarian crisis, which we need to avoid. So our advice is that this should be prevented by any possible means. What I really want to say is that at this moment, we're just at a very crucial juncture. It's a difficult situation that we're encountering because of the overall spillover effect in the region. We have the situation in Lebanon, the situation in Syria, in Red Sea. Obviously, we had the incidents with Iran. But at this very moment, all parties need to have a very high level of self-restraint.
Talking about self-restraint, this must be an incredibly difficult diplomatic position that Greece has been put in recently. To quote Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis, who back in November said of Israel, quote, "Sometimes friends have to speak hard truths to friends." That was 5 months ago. Has Israel been listening to any of those truths?
What I have to say is that in this position, you have to be very open, but you have to be a rule-based ally, I think. And from the very first day, we had the opportunity to be very open, but also very principled in our policy. We didn't take any side. What we said was that we need to disassociate the terrorist attacks, the Hamas organization, from the Palestinian people. We said that the Israelis had the right to defend themselves, but within the boundaries of humanitarian law and overall international law. We said that hostages should not be kept because this is totally against any sort of international law using people as human shields. And what we also said was that we need to minimize to the maximum the civilian losses. Obviously, all these were not heard, but the whole international community had this attitude. The point here is, Niamh, that we have to be as pressing as possible in order to implement eventually the halt of hostilities. At the moment, what we're claiming for is that Palestinians need to believe that there is a credible way out, and this is why we're fully supporting the two-state solution. According to the resolutions of the Security Council of the United Nations, with East Jerusalem as the capital city of the Palestine state, and of course with the pre-1967 borders. The thing is now that the whole community, the whole international community, needs to exercise the maximum pressure upon the parties in order to reach an agreement. And I really appreciate what Qatar and Egypt and other Arab states are doing, and the efforts of the European Union.
How convinced are those Gulf partners, Arab states? I mean, obviously, you're here in the region to speak to prominent figures. How convinced are those partners here in the Middle East and further afield that you are willing to push Israel as far as you possibly can on this?
At the moment, there is, I think, a consensus within the European Union partners that we need to have an immediate ceasefire and we need to further develop our humanitarian aid towards Palestine. There is a consensus on this point, and I don't think there is any divergence. What we need to do is to find the actual modes in order to exercise further pressure upon the parties, and I'm speaking both for the Hamas and for Israel. I think it's of utmost importance at the moment, Niv, that we join efforts because there are a lot of parallel efforts taking place. There is the Arab initiative, there is the European Union initiative, there is the American initiative. We need to actually combine all those parallel efforts in order to have a single effort to be more effective and meaningful.
I wonder if we can focus on that European initiative, because speaking at the Harvard Center for European Studies last year, you said that, quote, global governance needs to be based on principles, not just international standards of law, but coherent and consistent policy. On the matter of consistent policy that you stress in your speech, has Greece been consistent in defending international law in Gaza as you and the EU has been when it comes to the war in Ukraine and Russia's invasion?
I take it that you imply that we have double standards, but the thing is that when it comes to Greece, we have a very strong principled foreign policy. We have exactly the same standards when it comes to the Middle East or to Ukraine or to sub-Saharan Africa or to any other sort of conflict. The important thing is here that we fully abide by international law. We fully abide by the rules and morals of international humanitarian law, and that we have common standards. The thing is, first, that we need to actually condemn any sort of aggression. And the truth is that there is a lot of aggression coming from various authoritarian actors. Secondly, what we need to stress is that human dignity is at the top of our priority. Again, I have to stress the point that we cannot accept losses of civilian people, but at the same time, we cannot accept in any way that keeping hostages is a practice in order to get leverage to have international benefits. What I am saying is that we apply common international law standards. We have to be stronger, but also we have to be as pressing as possible. What we really lack is the implementation of our basic belief, because the truth is, Niv, that international law in these respects and the international security architecture when it comes to Middle East, but also to Ukraine, has failed. In my eyes, there is no case of double standards, Niv. What I have to say is that we are totally against any sort of aggression. There is no aggression that could be tolerable. Only when someone defends only when a country defends its territorial integrity, its sovereignty, when it supports the humanitarian law, only then we have a principled policy. And I have to say that when it comes to the European Union, and especially when it comes to Greece, I think we have a very strong single standard policy when it comes to Ukraine, when it comes to Middle East. From the very first moment, we said that there is a right to self-defense for Israel, but at the same time, we cannot accept any sort of disproportionate reaction. And apparently,
just jumping in on the disproportionate reaction that you flagged there. I mean, has, for instance, Germany, the powerhouse, the economic powerhouse of Europe, has its blanket support for Israel over the years with huge amounts of military support to Israel? Has that complicated your relations, your aspirations for peace in the region? Has that complicated Greece's relationship with Berlin?
Exactly because we have a very principled policy when it comes to the Middle East, Niv, we are able to talk to all interested parties. At this very moment, we can speak to the Israeli officials as well to the Palestinian officials. We speak to Jordan, we speak to Lebanon, we speak to Egypt, we speak obviously to our Gulf partners. We speak to all parties here. We have, as European Union...
Should Germany be showing restraint? I think that's the question I'm trying to ask. I mean, just to remind our viewers, we're talking, when it comes to German support for Israel, billions of dollars in naval vessels. We're talking about submarines, armoured vehicles, explosive devices, not to mention tank and aircraft parts. What does it mean to you that EU-made weapons are being used in this theatre of war in Gaza with such devastating consequences?
No guns should be used in an offensive way. That's our attitude. Guns are produced in order to prevent any sort of hostilities, in order to be used as a defensive mechanism, and in order to prevent the international security.
Many human rights groups say those weapons are being used in Gaza to indiscriminately and disproportionately kill. Do you believe Israel's war in Gaza is indiscriminate?
I think there has been a disproportionate defense here. I think that the death toll is huge, should not have happened. Obviously, when the other party in a war is using people as human shields, it's very difficult to operate any sort of defense. On the other hand, what I'm saying is that we should prevent any sort of civilian losses.
What I'm suggesting is that by fueling the conflict, by continuing this unhindered, unrestricted flow of weaponry and aid from a prominent EU member state surely is not going to lead to peace. To pull the right lever in order to urge Israel to step away from its current trajectory would surely mean doing something more affirmative.
Clearly, we need to do further things vis-à-vis Israel. We need to be more pressing. We have discussed this during our Foreign Affairs Council in Luxembourg. And I think we will find ways to be more pressing in the forthcoming Foreign Affairs Council in Brussels. We're going to invite the Israeli Foreign Minister, and we're going to hear how the situation is from his viewpoint. The truth is that I think that there is a unanimity, and I stress this point, there is unanimity among the European Union partners that at this very moment the war needs to stop. We should allow further space for diplomacy to prevail, and we need to provide a vision to the Palestinian people through a two-state solution.
In April 2021, Israel and Greece, you signed your biggest defence procurement deal, didn't you? I mean, the deal includes this $1.65 billion contract to train the Greek Air Force by the Israeli defence contractor Elbit Systems. That's over a 22-year period. That's a serious commitment between Greece and Israel. Will your government be reviewing those military ties in light of what we're seeing in the Middle East and the Israeli war on Gaza?
To be honest, Niv, I don't think it's the time to actually revisit our contracts and our strategic partnerships. I think the moment is here to develop...
What message does that send in terms of your commitment to peace in the region?
The commitment to peace is our principal attitude to claim for a ceasefire, to claim for further humanitarian aid, to be sincere mediators. Because the truth is now, Niv, that countries like Greece is more useful than ever. The same with Qatar. Because we are able to talk to both parties. Not many countries can talk to both countries, and this is the outcome of our rule-based policy. Obviously, we have a strategic partnership with Israel. We haven't hidden this, and I think it is important to have strategic alliances in the region, but this has not prevented us from being very strong and very tough with Israel.
How would you explain the growing closeness between Greece and Israel in recent years? After all, previous Greek governments, I think it's fair to say, have been very sympathetic to the Palestinian cause. I mean, back in 1982, it was Greek ships that were sent to bring the PLO leader Yasser Arafat to Athens. What's happened over the years?
Nothing. We still have excellent relations with the Arabic states, and especially with the Palestinian Authority. From the very first time, what we said was that we should prevent any sort of delegitimization of the Palestinian Authority. One of the major problems now is that we do not have a credible interlocutor from the Palestinian side, because in the course of the war, there has been a demoralization of the Palestinian Authority. From the very first day, we said that we would like to see the Palestinian Authority being a credible discussant. We think that the Palestinian Authority represents the Palestinian people. And this is why I myself visited Ramallah, and I hosted the foreign minister, and I have direct talks with the higher level of the political leadership in Palestine. We have an excellent relationship. We fully support them. We have provided huge humanitarian support, and we intend to be, again, I am saying this, we intend to be very honest mediators in this turmoil.
I ask about the growing closeness between Greece and Israel because it appears to many analysts looking in from the inside that that relationship is based upon a shared mistrust of Turkey, of Ankara. It's no secret, of course, that you remain at odds over territory, over the status of Cyprus. The list goes on.
First of all, I'd like to say that Greece voted in favor of the ceasefire and of the further humanitarian aid during the General Assembly of the United Nations. We produced with other allies the resolution to stop hostilities and provide further humanitarian aid. Now, when it comes to international politics, I have to tell you very frankly, Niamh, that we do not follow any sort of transactional policy. What you imply is that we have some joint interests with Israel because we go against Turkey. This is not the case. I have to tell you this on two grounds. First, as a matter of principle, because what we do has nothing to do with getting any collateral benefits. From my first day in the Foreign Ministry, I said that I will follow a very rule-based policy, a very principled policy, and I have fully abided by this. So I do not expect to have any gains from my country's policy. The second thing is that now we are in a state of improving our relationship with Turkey. We have done a lot of significant steps in order to mitigate our tensions. The truth is that in the last year, we have made it to actually reduce tension in the broader region. We have made it to develop a positive agenda.
Nevertheless, Turkey has continually accused you of militarizing the Aegean, President Erdogan's words. Is that happening?
First of all, we have to say that the Greece-Turkey relationship is based on international law. It's not something that is determined by the voluntarist attitude of any of those states. So international law explicitly proclaims that the islands, the Aegean islands, belong to Greece. There is a line of islands that are protected, fully protected by international law. Greece is exercising the full legitimate right to defend the islands and to defend the country. It's obvious, Niamh, when you have a huge army just across in a couple of miles distance, you need to be very well prepared. Having said that, I need to say that we are working for peace, and I think we have shown explicit evidence that we want Turkey to be close to us. Indeed, our Prime Minister Mitsotakis is going to Ankara on the 13th of May. We're going to have a very productive dialogue. This is coming in the aftermath of President Erdogan's visit to Athens on the 7th of December last year. We signed a very important, both from the point of view of the symbolic nature as well as from the practical viewpoint, a political declaration indicating good neighborly relations and friendly settlement of
So you could definitely call this, in your eyes, very much a rapprochement, but still, as I've mentioned, underlying tensions remain. When in recent days, Turkey described the decision to designate parts of the Aegean Sea and Ionian Sea as Greek nature parks. They say you're simply exploiting issues to push your geopolitical agenda, namely to assert control over the entire region. Is that what Greece is doing there?
No, because, as I said, we're not doing any transactional politics to start with. What we're doing is just to preserve our environment and the nature's environment. Last week, we had a very successful reunion in Greece. We had the 9th Our Ocean Conference. It's a huge conference about the preservation of waters and oceans worldwide. We had 125 delegations from around the world. It was a very important gathering. We had about 400 commitments amounting to about 11 billion euros. Among our commitments, it was the establishment of 2 parks in Greece, one in the Ionian Sea, one in the Aegean Sea. What we're saying is that those parks will be devoid of any sort of financial exploitation in order exactly to preserve the sustainability of the water environment in the region. This is clearly within the sovereignty and sovereign rights of Greece. There has not as yet been the map, so please allow me to consider that there was an overreaction concerning this declaration from us. But we have here to agree on something which is important. When it comes to environmental sustainability, we cannot do geopolitics. Environmental sustainability is a need for the humanity. It is a global challenge, and it takes some brave decisions, and we're going to make those brave decisions.
In the interests of smoothing tensions, of easing tensions with your large historical neighbour, of course you've had many tensions for many years, would it be prudent to reduce your military presence in the likes of the island of Kos, for instance? According to Turkey, under the 1947 peace treaty, there shouldn't be any Greek troops there in the first place.
In my eyes, this is a total misreading of the treaties. And as you know, I'm a lawyer and an academic, and I can read treaties. The truth is that we preserve the necessary military in order to defend ourselves. And I think there is not a single person that would consider that Greece would have any sort of offensive aspirations against Turkey. We are a relatively small nation, but you know that we have to defend ourselves. We have to exercise a fully fledged policy of national defense, and this is what we're going to do. In an ideal world, I would say that obviously we wouldn't need to have any army. But given the fact that there is an army surrounding us from various neighborhoods, I think that it's necessary to have a strong army.
You don't just have an army, you also spend perhaps more than any other country, or many, many countries. I mean, back in 2022, Greece was spending more on defence than any other EU country as a proportion of GDP, well over the 2% threshold required as a NATO member. Does that, in your opinion, continue to be money well spent, given recent economic turmoil in Greece? Of course, the country is recovering well, but nevertheless, is this money well spent for your voters?
There are two questions here, whether we're doing well and whether we should do any national defense spending. So I will take the latter to start with. What I suggest is, yes, we're having a national defense expenditure which is above the average. And I have to tell you that this is totally explicable if someone reads history. Unfortunately, we're not Luxembourg, and we're not living in a very peaceful neighborhood. And the truth is that we have to be very well prepared. Greece is a country with the greatest seesaw in Europe. We have a very large seesaw. We have to defend our islands. We have to defend our region. So obviously, we need to do some additional national defense spending. Whether this is well-deserved, I would say that this is a democratic challenge. If the electorate says that it's money well spent, then it is well spent. And this government has, for a second consecutive time, a huge electoral victory. Over 41% of the electorate voted in favor of our program. So I would say that there is a total respect of our program. Now, on the other side of the coin, I would say that the fact that Greece is doing extremely well in the economic sector allow us to just invest not only obviously in national defense, but only in other aspects, in social state and also in investments. Greece is expected to have a growth rate of 3% next in this current year, 2024, whereas the EU average will be 0.8. So you can see that we have a 3-time greater GDP than growth than other states. So we are allowed to do some spending. And indeed, the maximum of our spending goes to social needs and investments.
What does it mean to you to no longer be perceived as the economic sick man of Europe?
This is good for our self-confidence to start with. The truth is that we had a huge turbulence. We had 10 years of austerity policies. We were very close to actually get out of the European Union because of our fiscal situation. And we had to go through a series of very unfortunate incidents, including the persistence of populism in Greece. Populism got us in a very difficult situation, one step away from the European Union. We managed to survive, and I think Greek people showed a high level of maturity. And when it came to the crucial 2019 elections, the people voted for a government that would bring back Greece into normality, bring back Greece into the European family. And now we're very proud to say that we have significantly reduced our debt, that we have significantly increased our GDP, and we have, above all, we have a very sustainable environment for investments. We have a 35% increase on exports, and we have a 30% increase on direct foreign investments. And I'm proud again to say that some colossal companies have come to Greece in the last 5 years, including Pfizer, Google, Amazon, Meta. They all invest in Greece because they think that Greece provides a very solid foundation for investment. And I would like to actually call for, through your channel, to potential investors to check out Greece, because this is going to be the economic miracle in terms of investments for the future.
Very, very briefly, as a last question, I want to put this to you, because you seem very, very aware of the need for diplomacy, the need to ease tensions at this very, very difficult time. How optimistic are you of the Europe that we know remaining stable?
We have a problem, Niv. And the problem is that there is an issue of the way we take decisions. The decision-making mechanisms in international organizations seems to be quite obsolete at the moment. What happened was, in the aftermath of the Second World War, we had an international arena where we had to get together, but we had to develop also a national voice within international organizations. And that led to the veto rights, both in the Security Council of the United Nations and to the European Union. The veto right apparently has been a huge snag in order to get to a rational decision. And I think this is going to be the problem for the years to come. The fact that we have an international law decision-making which prohibits the states, the international organizations, from taking decisions that are results-oriented and coherent, rational. We have to revisit the way we take decisions, and above all, we have to put the global above the states. We have to think more of the future. We have to think more about the generations to come. We have to think about shared challenges such as the climate crisis, the food insecurity, and we have to think about the children above all.
Giorgos Gerapetritis, thank you for talking to Al Jazeera.
It was outstanding. Thank you so much, Nick.